I'm Susan Goldwater.
And I'm Henry Tenenbaum. Welcome to PM in Paris. We're at the Moulin de Village restaurant in Paris.
Celebrating our third day in France with a bottle of champagne.
Which is appropriate because tonight on PM Magazine, we are going to visit the champagne capital of the world, the city of Reims. And we're going to tour the Mumm Champagne cellar, which contains 27 million bottles.
But first, a toast to France.
And a toast to champagne.
Voltaire waxed poetic about champagne, calling the sparkling foam of this cool wine a living image of the French people. And Madame Pompadour had a different view. She hailed it as the only wine that left a woman beautiful after drinking. It all happens here. The Champagne district of France lies 90 miles east of Paris, and its capital is Reims, a picturesque French town filled with ancient history. The Romans left behind a forum. The cathedral has seen the coronation of 40 kings and the triumph of Joan of Arc. And it was here in 1814 that Napoleon I celebrated his last victory. But the real fame of this city lies hidden beneath the ground, the champagne cellars. It's a favorable combination of soil, climate, geography, and geology that makes this country so conducive to the abundant harvests for the wine growers. In the spring, the vines are carefully cultivated and cared for, so that by September, the grapes will be ready for harvest. The chalky soil of the district reflects the sun's rays and gives out the maximum heat and light. That same waterproof chalk soil is easily dug to make the long, deep cellars 100 feet below the ground, in which the champagne bottles are aged. And the cellars under the city of Reims stretch for more than 120 miles. My tour guide through the subterranean catacomb was Monsieur Ganter of Mumm's Vineyards. He and I descended into those cellars to discover the difference between regular still wine and champagne. After harvest and pressing, the champagne undergoes the fermentation process common to all winemaking. A small amount of natural yeast is added to the grape juices, which turns the grape sugar into alcohol. After about 6 weeks in oak barrels or modern steel vats, the wine is blended and ready for bottling. But here is where the difference lies. Yet another bit of yeast is added to the wine, and a second fermentation takes place inside the bottle. The bottles are then stored in a lower cellar for aging 4 to 5 years. It was into that cellar which we next descended.
It's very cold down here.
It's quite an even temperature of about 8 to 9 degrees centigrade, roughly 48, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is the ideal temperature.
It takes 3.5 pounds of grapes for every 1 bottle of champagne, and there are rows and rows, stacks and stacks of champagne bottles down here. During the aging process, the yeast collects as a sediment along the bottom of each bottle.
Here we are walking in one of the longest gallery we do have in Mumm's, and before we had to build down there to create an aging cellar with air conditioning. This gallery here actually was over 1 kilometer long, 2/3 of a mile, 2/3 of a mile long, going from one street, covering up another street, and going far beyond Mumm's property on the other side of the city. And in these caves, you see on the side, we do have smaller caves where the bottles age.
How much cave area is there, and how many bottles are down here?
Approximately 29, 30 millions bottles.
Of champagne down here?
Of champagne, of the various labels produced by the house. And if you put every meter, every inch, I would say, together here, you end up having something like 20 kilometers. 20 kilometers of caves altogether at Mumm's, on 2 levels, with the side caves.
It's busy enough around here. What are they doing?
It's quite busy, you know. They are getting the goods from one spot to another spot. The goods which are ready in one cave after riddling are put on these carts, and they are driven up and brought up to the disgorging plant.
Before we learn what disgorging means, let's find out about riddling. This man is a riddler, and he's the magician of this underground world.
His official title is a remueur. Literal translation, a man who shakes the bottles. An American expression would be a riddler. And the purpose of his job, a key position in the champagne house, is to bring the sediment, which is the result of a second fermentation in the bottle, is to bring that sediment down to the neck of the bottle and finally have a bottle of champagne which is absolutely clear and perfect.
How does one learn to do that?
It's a fairly long process too. It takes about 3 years to build a professional riddler. And the gentleman you see working here, his name is Mr. Lecuyer, and he has been with the company for 22 years. He has been a riddler for 22 years.
What is it that takes 3 years to learn?
To learn how, because it's not just doing the physical work of riddling the bottle. The important part of it is looking at the wine and knowing the wine by transparency in the bottle to know when and how you start doing the job. Working on a batch of wine like that, you will look at the wine and look where the sediment lies in the bottle of wine. And knowing today where the sediment lies, he's going to shake a little bit more left or right or more upright or more horizontal. And this process for every bottle will take approximately 2 months.
After 2 months of riddling, the bottles are almost completely upright in the racks. They are then ready to be loaded back into the carts and taken upstairs for dégorgement.
From the cellars, the wine comes to one of the most interesting rooms in the entire operation. This is called dégorgement. What they do is they take the bottles and stand them neck down in this huge machine. Now, all the sediment is trapped in the neck of the bottle. And down through here, there is very cold water, and it's freezing all the sediment and a small quantity of wine right there in the neck of the bottle. Down here at the end, what you have is an ice cube, literally a small ice cube, stuck in the neck of the bottle. Okay? The wine itself has been chilled a little bit. Now, we go down a little farther, and we're going to see a remarkable machine. And what the machine is going to do is to pop open the bottle. When the bottle is popped open, it pushes out the ice cube. And what you have then is a perfect bottle of champagne. And that's the new way of doing dégorgement.
The old method of dégorgement is still used for very special wines or unusually shaped bottles which won't fit into the machines. In this process, the bottles are not frozen. Instead, the small bubble of air in each bottle is used to coax the sediment to the neck of the bottle. And at just the right moment, he pops off the cap and the sediment bursts out. If he makes even one mistake, the sediment is mixed back into the wine and the riddling has to start all over again. Unless you think that all the pressure and all the bubbly has now escaped, here's proof that this champagne is still very much alive. Once the corks are removed, each bottle is checked for clarity and a small amount of liquor, cane sugar dissolved in old champagne, is added to each bottle so that it has a consistent flavor from year to year. The bottles rest again for 3 months, then they're ready to be labeled and topped with a Mumm's cap. The best part of a champagne tour for me is when the cap and cork are removed for the last time and the tasting begins.
What is this?
Mumm's Cordon Rouge Vintage 1973. The most famous champagne in France and in America. Mumm's the world, that's where it's all started at the turn of the century.
I must say that after looking at champagne all day, I'm ready to drink it. À votre santé.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
And here's to you.
Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment with our PM Magazine departments. How did you get to do that champagne story anyway?
Ah, you like champagne, huh?
Oh, I love it. You must have been like a kid in a candy factory.
Well, I've never really liked champagne that much, but after tasting some of the very better champagnes, I must say I've developed a taste for it.
An expensive taste.
Well, as a matter of fact, the reason that imported champagne is so expensive in the United States is because it's taxed as a luxury item. Now, I don't think that's fair. Champagne isn't a luxury, it's a necessity of life.
And a perfect place to drink champagne is on the French Riviera in Monte Carlo, and that's where we're going to take you tomorrow night.
We're going to take a tour of the casinos and the beaches and meet some of the beautiful people.
All coming up tomorrow night on PM Magazine. Good night.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.